Hi, you're on the Storm to Truth channel. Enjoy watching. The story begins with the fact that I have been married to my wife Jessica for almost 12 years. We've got 2 kids together, a mortgage, and the whole suburban life package. For a long time, I thought we were solid. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that made me question whether she was faithful. But here's the thing. About 6 months ago, things started feeling off. I wasn't sure what it was at first. I'd notice little changes, like how she'd suddenly get a lot more secretive with her phone and she started working late a lot more often. I'd ask her about it, and she always had a quick answer ready. Oh, the boss is making us push for this deadline, or I'm just grabbing drinks with the girls from work. You know how it is. And like a fool, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? After all, we've been together for over a decade. But then, about a month ago, I really started noticing a shift in her behavior. She'd get home and barely say 2 words to me, glued to her phone like it was a lifeline. She'd dress up more when going out for meetings, and suddenly she started buying new lingerie. Yeah, I noticed that too. And before you ask, no, I wasn't the one who got to see her in it. I still didn't want to jump to conclusions. I mean, who wants to think their wife, the mother of their kids, is cheating on them? But the signs just kept piling up. The late nights, the sudden interest in her appearance, the way she'd brush off my questions with a smirk and say, "Don't be paranoid, babe. You know I'd never do that to you." It wasn't until I noticed her disappearing for hours on weekends that my gut started screaming at me. One Saturday, I thought, screw it. I'll check her location on her phone, something I've never done before because I trusted her. To my surprise, or not, she wasn't anywhere near the office. Instead, she was in some residential neighborhood across town, nowhere near where she said she'd be. My heart dropped. I sat there in disbelief, staring at the screen. What the hell was she doing out there? And that's when it hit me. She wasn't just working late. She wasn't just going out with friends. There was someone else. That moment was like a punch in the gut. I wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe she was meeting someone from work. Maybe there was a good reason she was there and just hadn't mentioned it. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. The next few days were torture. I tried to act normal, but every time I looked at her, I felt sick to my stomach. I was too afraid to confront her without any real proof. I needed something concrete, something specific, something that would make her stop lying to my face. That's when everything changed. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had a knot in my chest. It was a Sunday, so we were both home with the kids, and the day started like any other. Jessica made breakfast, acting like everything was perfectly normal, completely unaware that I had seen everything the night before. I watched her, trying to hold it together, but my mind was racing. How was she so calm, so casual, like she wasn't sneaking around behind my back? I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't sit there and pretend like everything was fine. I waited until the kids were busy watching cartoons in the other room, and then I told her we needed to talk. She gave me a weird look, but followed me into the kitchen. "Is something wrong?" she asked, her voice dripping with fake concern. That smirk again. I stared at her for a moment, and then I just blurted it out. "Who the hell is Ryan?" For a split second, I saw her face go pale. She quickly recovered, though, trying to act confused. "What? Who's Ryan?" I wasn't playing games. "Don't lie to me, Jess. I saw the messages. I know everything." She stood there frozen, her face shifting between panic and anger. "You went through my phone? Are you serious right now? That's a complete violation of my privacy." I couldn't believe it. That was her response? "Your privacy? Are you kidding me? You've been sleeping with another guy for months, and you're worried about privacy?" She scoffed, rolling her eyes like I was the crazy one. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. It's not like I'm leaving you or anything. Ryan is just someone I've been talking to. It doesn't mean anything." My blood was boiling at this point. "It doesn't mean anything? You've been sneaking off to his house, lying to my face, and you're telling me it's no big deal? Do you think I'm stupid? I saw the texts. You're sleeping with him, Jess. Don't even try to deny it." She crossed her arms, her face hardening. "Fine. You want the truth? Yeah, I've been seeing Ryan, but it's not what you think. It's just sex, okay? It's not like I'm in love with the guy. We've been together forever, and things have gotten boring between us. I needed something exciting, something different." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was saying it like it was the most reasonable thing in the world, like I should just accept that she needed something different. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut again, but this time I wasn't backing down. So what? I shot back. You decided the solution was to fuck someone else behind my back? Did you even think about how this would affect me or the kids? Her face softened for a moment, but then she shrugged. Look, I'm sorry you found out this way, but what do you want me to say? You've been so caught up in your routine, your work, whatever, that I felt neglected. I needed someone to make me feel alive again. Ryan does that. I couldn't believe how casually she was saying this, like her cheating was somehow my fault. The anger was boiling over, and I could feel my hands shaking. Neglected? Are you serious? I've been here, supporting you, helping with the kids, doing everything I can to be a good husband, and this is what I get? You're telling me this is my fault because you were bored? She rolled her eyes again, like I was being dramatic. Look, maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have had to look elsewhere. But what's done is done. We can work through this if you want, or we can just move on. Honestly, I don't even care at this point. That last sentence hit me like a freight train. I don't even care at this point. She wasn't sorry. She didn't feel guilty. She didn't care that she'd broken my trust and wrecked our marriage. She was ready to walk away, and it was like none of this even mattered to her. I stood there for a moment, staring at her, trying to wrap my head around how cold and indifferent she had become. The woman I had spent over a decade with, the mother of my kids, didn't care if our marriage ended. I can't believe this, I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. After everything, this is how it ends. She shrugged again, like it was no big deal. I guess so. That was it. There was no more to say. I couldn't look at her anymore, couldn't stand to be in the same room with her. I walked out of the kitchen, grabbed my keys, and left the house. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay there. Around for what felt like hours, I parked at some random lot by the water. I stared out at the empty horizon, my mind racing. I thought back to the beginning, how Jessica and I met, the way we fell in love, built a life together. I thought about the kids, about our home, our history. And then I thought about those texts. The lies. The way she stood there this morning, twisting everything to make it seem like I was the one who drove her into someone else's arms. It was like my entire marriage had been a lie. But here's the thing. Once the shock started wearing off, something else set in. A kind of clarity. I realized that I had been holding on to this relationship for so long, thinking it was my duty to make it work, thinking that being a good husband meant sacrificing my own happiness, my own dignity. I'd been loyal to a fault, convincing myself that Jessica was still the woman I fell in love with. But the truth? That version of her had been gone for a long time. I wasn't blind to her flaws. Hell, we all have them. But what I wasn't willing to accept anymore was the constant disrespect, the betrayal, the manipulation. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, and the fact that she had no remorse, no shame, only made it worse. So there I was, sitting in my car, asking myself the toughest question. Do I keep fighting for this, or do I finally let it go? It wasn't an easy question. Part of me wanted to believe we could fix it. I mean, we had kids together, a whole life together. But deep down, I knew the answer. This wasn't something that could be patched up with therapy or a few heartfelt apologies. This was bigger than just one affair. It was about trust, respect, and the basic decency of a partnership. And Jessica had destroyed all of that with her lies, her indifference. I picked up my phone and called my buddy Mike. He was the first person I told when I had started to suspect something was up, and he had been my rock through all of this. He answered after the first ring. Hey man, how you holding up? Not great, I said, my voice shaky, but I've made a decision. I'm done. I'm leaving her. Mike didn't try to talk me out of it. He knew, just like I did, that there was no going back. I think that's the right call, he said. You deserve better than what she's putting you through. And that was it. A sense of finality washed over me. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, I felt a weird sort of calm, like I was finally taking control of my life again. It wasn't going to be easy. There would be lawyers, custody battles, and 1,000 difficult conversations ahead. But I knew it was the right thing to do. I drove home later that afternoon, determined to put an end to the charade. When I walked in, Jessica was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, probably texting Ryan or planning her next work trip. I didn't feel anger anymore, just a strange, quiet resolve. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice steady. She looked up, surprised at how calm I was. "Are you serious?" "Yeah," I said, nodding. "I'm done. This isn't working. It hasn't been for a long time, and I'm not going to keep pretending. I'll get a lawyer, and we'll figure out the rest. But we're over." She sat there, her face blank. For a second, I wondered if she'd even fight it, if she'd try to convince me to stay. But then, she just shrugged. "If that's what you want." I nodded again. It was exactly what I wanted. In the days that followed, it all started falling into place. I told the kids as gently as I could, and even though they didn't fully understand, they could sense the change. I moved into a small apartment across town, and for the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I started seeing my therapist more often, and I focused on being the best dad I could be. As for Jessica, she moved on with her life, probably with Ryan. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. She was just a chapter in my life, a chapter I was more than ready to close. And you know what? In the end, this whole experience taught me something important. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is walk away. But sometimes it's the only thing you can do. You can't control someone else's actions, no matter how much you love them, no matter how much history you share. All you can do is take care of yourself, make the choices that protect your own heart, and move forward. So for anyone reading this, if you're stuck in a situation like mine, remember, you deserve better. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. And if you're not getting that, it's okay to let go. It's okay to choose yourself. I did, and I haven't looked back since. Subscribe and like. Thanks for watching. Next video